If I asked you, has there ever been a time where you sat down with a client and they said, we're thinking about waiting. We're thinking about waiting because we think we can time the market. We think that the rates in the next 6 months to a year are going to be this. And we think if we wait, then we'll be in a better position to buy at a better price or with a better rate. I know you've all experienced it. I hear about it every single day. Have you ever heard someone that said, okay, so tell me exactly what it's going to cost me to sell my house? Tell me like exactly. And I jokingly say, and it's the reason why I'm so obsessed with Jeremy and his company and what they do and what you're going to see and learn today, and it's all free, which is even better, is is the number of times I've said to agents, there's a percentage of agents that simply struggle with math, right? And if you struggle with math and you're talking about complex negotiations, you're talking about fees and percentages and cost to close the transaction and what is this expense and what is that? If you struggle with that, you just simply lose credibility, right? And I jokingly say, like, there's just a lot of agents that struggle with math, except when someone says, what's 2.5% of $497,300?
They're
Then
Rain
you seem to
Man.
magically,
Rain
right?
Man.
Then you're Rain Man, right? Then you know the number. So Jeremy, we're running a little bit behind. You got 15 minutes. I'm going to turn over the reins. You're going to learn some remarkable ways, my friends, to be a great educator today. If you have questions, hit me up in the Q&A. I disabled the chat, Jeremy, because there was some, kind of like last time, some spammers going nutty inside there. So Jeremy Davis, CEO of Palm Agent. Jeremy, take it away.
Tom, thank you so much. And I'm incredibly excited. I wanted to first ask you before I leave, or before you leave, how do you really feel about just sold cards? I love the passion. Like, I'm watching this. I'm watching the whole day and I'm loving it. And we have to have passion today for
Yes.
anybody to kind of pay attention. And that goes for
Yes.
all of us on the call. If you don't have enthusiasm and passion about what you're talking about, get
it.
ready to be ignored. But no, Tom,
That's
thank you
right.
for the introduction. I agree. If I've spent my life devoted to one small piece of real estate, which is like numbers and math. And if you're someone who did not get into real estate because you love math, if that wasn't the reason you entered the industry, which I'm going to assume is 100% of you, but maybe there's 1 and 2, then this probably isn't going to be for you. But we have some really cool calculators that I want to talk about today. So I'm Jeremy with Palm Agent. We have closing costs that we've built specifically for the entire country. And there's a few things I want to cover today quickly, 3 calculators specifically. But first, let me say that if you don't have our app already, now we partner, we say it's free. And how do we do this for free? We have partners all over the country, title companies, and the title companies have seen this. They've shared their local data with us and they help us distribute it and they help sponsor it. So that's kind of how we've arranged it so that you get it for free. But that doesn't mean it's worth nothing. Like, get the app and use the app. And if for some reason we don't have a title sponsor in your area, there's a few of those cities, reach out and let us know, but you can still use the app. Here's the QR code. So it's branded with different title companies. That's probably what most of you are more familiar with, but this is how you get the app. And then secondly, I'm going to talk about 3 calculators today. I'm going to talk about the buy down calculator. We have a really unique, cool opportunity because rates have just ticked back up a little bit. And I don't want us to miss this opportunity. And so I want to show the calculator we built just for this moment. And then I want to talk about holding costs. What does it cost for a listing that's sitting a little bit longer? What is that costing your seller every 30 days that house sits on the market? And what's a cool way for us to have that conversation? Then I'm going to end with the equity review, which is our most popular calculator we have right now. But let's just get into it. So let me share my screen. I'm going to pull up my phone actually on the webinar, and it should connect. And let's see if we can all see it. There we go. Perfect. So this is Palm Agent. You'll have your own branded version. The numbers that you're using, I say do this with me, make this more of a workshop, but the numbers that you're using aren't going to match my numbers because I'm using a Dallas calculator. So every area has local taxes and closing costs and stuff built into it. There's a buyer's button, there's a seller's button, but I want to start with this calculator called a buy down. But before I do, I want to share a quick story because I was talking to Tom about this last week. And this story really, I think, positions the buy down perfectly while we're having these conversations with our seller. I was in Nashville 4 or 5 years ago with a friend. He's in his 90s and he's a developer in Nashville, and he's driving me around and he's showing me properties. And him and his family have owned all this acreage right outside of Nashville for like 100 years, generationally. And he's telling me a story about how he knew this land would go up 10 times in value if he could get a bridge built to Nashville, because to get from his land and get to downtown Nashville, you had to drive around a roundabout way, and it made his land undesirable. And so he said, I went to the council to sell them on getting a bridge and also the development. You know, it was a little selfish, but also the development west of Nashville as we were growing. And he said, I had a mentor stop me, and he's in his 90s. So I don't know how old his mentor was. He had a mentor stop him and say, uh, I've dealt with city councils all my life. When councils hear the word bridge, they hear that bridges are expensive and they never get over that no matter what you're pitching. And it's probably not going to get passed. So go in there and I want you to tell them about a connector that you need built for this land and for the development west of Nashville. And he drove me over the bridge and he said, still to this day, this bridge, the locals call this a connector bridge. And it's such a cool story because how we position what we're doing can make all the difference in the world. Okay. So the buy down calculator, rates have ticked back up. We all know that interest rates can be very emotional. You know, a lot of rates don't have anything to do with payments and closing costs and prices. It's I'm not getting a rate in the sevens. And now they're kind of creeping back up into the sevens. So how are we going to have the conversation around rates with our buyers and our sellers? When you go talk to a seller and and you say the words price reduction, does everybody kind of have some emotion around that? Price reduction? What are our biases as soon as we hear that? And so here's a cool way to have this conversation and a cool way to do the calculations. And let me just jump in and show you how this works. So I'm going to put in, and I'm doing this on my phone. You're seeing it on the screen. I'm going to put in a $750,000 house. Okay. So I went into the calculator we have called buy down calculator, and I just put in 750,000. Part of our specialty, I always say, is we didn't invent math. We just made it as easy as you can possibly make it. I'm not really a math person. So just follow me here, 750. And then I'm going to add this piece and I'll show you why. What does the seller owe on the property? Now, I've shown Tom some of your audience before. If you don't know what they owe, but you know the address, this is like magic. I think this is the coolest thing in the world. It will come up and say, hey, when you're doing a net sheet, we want to prorate the taxes to the closing date to make it accurate. Here's the taxes we found online. If you don't have them, this was last year's taxes. Do you want to use that number? And I say, yeah, I'll use that number. And then we also found a loan recorded. And the loan says in 2021, there was a $427,000 loan recorded. Do you want to use that loan? And I go, perfect. And this is cool. I love how I can do this. This is all free too. And then it says the average rate for 2021 was 2.94. So I'm going to say their rate was 3, or you can talk to them and see. And then I'm going to hit compute, and it says, assuming this address and this loan that was recorded, and assuming they've made their payments, they should owe about $399,000. How else are we doing this? Like, this is from your phone in 30 seconds. And I'm going to say, yes, I want to use the estimate. Okay. So I put in how much we want to sell the house for, and I've put in now their loan balance. If they have it, let's put it in. But if they don't have it, here's a way that you can kind of go about problem solving and figuring it out. Then I'm going to hit compute. Now, here's kind of how I want to have the conversation around the seller buy down. Part of the reason this gets so confusing is it's cyclical. You know, it's been 20 years since we've even had these conversations. So people have to kind of dust off the old playbook and say, here's a play that works in this market around higher interest rates that people are locked up on. So I'm going to talk to a seller, first of all, and I'm going to say, instead of a price reduction, what about if we offer an incentive to the buyer? You know, a connector. Let's have this conversation a little bit of a different way. We're still doing the same thing, but what if we offered an incentive to the buyer to buy their rate down? Now, most popular, I'm going to go back and show you that. Most popular is a 2-1 buy down. You know, there's 3-2-1s, there's permanent buy downs, there's all the kind of stuff around this. But just for the sake of this conversation, let's do a 2-1 buy down. So 725. And I said the loan balance I'll just put as 400. And really quick, it shows you right here, the 15,294 is what this buy down is going to cost for a 2-1 buy down. We have a drop down here if you want to play with some different ones, but that's where I get it gets kind of confusing. Let's just do a 2-1 buy down. 2 points the first year, 1 point the second year. And our friend David Childress, who's going to be on here in a little bit, all the data says rates are going to come down. We kind of already know which way the rates are going to go. They go up fast, as Tom said, and they come downstairs. They go up an elevator and they come downstairs, but they are going to come down. And they may be coming down a little slower than we first thought, but they are going to come down. So we need relief for maybe 24 months. And I can say the first year, this property is 725. The buyer is going to have a 7.125% rate. You know, they've creeped up a little bit, and the monthly payment's going to run at about $5,700. Does everybody see that? And then if we do a 2-1 buy down, all that means is instead of a 7.1 rate, it's going to be a 5.1 rate. That sounds a lot better. It feels a lot better the first year. The first year, 2 points. So our rate's going to be 5.125. That would bring the payment down to about $4,867. And the monthly savings about $843, and the annual savings about $10,100 that first year. The second year is a 1 point buy down, a 2 the first year, a 1 the second year is if they need a little more float. 6.125. Here's what that does to their payment. Here would be their monthly savings over just a traditional loan right now, and here's their annual savings. And then year 3, it goes back to the standard rate that they were locking in today. They need to be able to afford that rate. You know, we can't sell them on this idea of year 3, it's going to guaranteed be this. We don't have crystal balls, but at least we can show them this scenario. And again, we're not lenders. We're not trying to be lenders. What we're trying to do is help educate and lead our buyers and sellers so that they know, so they can sit down with a lender and say, you know what, maybe this is a decent idea. Maybe a $15,000 incentive to a buyer might move the needle. And then if I scroll down, we run 2 full net sheets for you. So you can see here at the bottom, a traditional sale without an incentive is $273,000. And with this 2-1 buy down incentive, you see it's going to be about $258,000. So really everything you need for probably 90% of your conversations around a buy down is right here. To your buyers, when you're making offers. And this is an incredible time to buy right now. I really do think this is an incredible time to buy, because these rates are scaring off buyers. We don't have the competition. As long as you believe the appreciation game, the appreciation story has to be intact. If you don't believe houses are going to cost more in 2 years, then this might not be the best time in human history to buy, but today is the best time in human history to buy. I've helped two friends. I'm not even a real estate agent, but I've shown them the math and had 2 friends buy houses. They got it for a much better price than they're going to get when rates cross the 5s again, 5s and 6s in front of them. Much better price. And they were able to look at this and say, as long as we think in the next 2 years rates are going to be below 7 and we can refinance, this is a great time to buy. But how are we having these conversations? And here's a calculator that can kind of walk you through it. We also have, if you want to look at the loan details, you can kind of scroll over and we'll break down all the math. But again, we're not lenders, but here's the math. Here's what it would cost a seller, $15,000 on a $750,000 or $725,000 house. And here's how you do it. The second one I want to show you is holding cost. What does it cost to keep this house on the market? Because again, this was the biggest question we had with over 400,000 users in 20 years of doing this. Number one question we had that we never were able to solve was, what is the cost of the seller leaving the house on the market? A lot of times that's unrealistic sellers. A lot of times that's sellers that don't want to reduce their price, but they need to understand the pressure on the other side, which is, it's costing me money to keep this house listed. So let me show you this calculator. I'm going to put in $825,000, and I'm going to put in their payoff. We know we can put in the address, but for time, I'm going to put in 7.25, and I'm going to hit compute. And this is our normal standard net sheet. This is always kind of my favorite thing. When you rotate it, it's kind of a bonus feature. We run 5 net sheets at once. because it's showing you that it's hard to predict sales price on a listing presentation. So going up 10 and up 20 and down 10 and down 20 from our target price, it's 5 full net sheets, title fees, closing costs, realtor commissions, all broken out for you. But when you swipe over on this screen, this is what I wanted to show you. We show you on this property, what are the expenses of keeping this house on the market? You know, when we're thinking about a price reduction, this is kind of where it comes back to of interest, taxes, and insurance. That's lost money. We extract the principal part of the payment out and we show you 30, 60, 90, and 120 days. Now, if I actually want to go in and say there's also a $500 HOA fee, there's $2,300 in monthly utilities and electricity and lawn maintenance, or I want to go in and say they're paying $400 a month for blah, 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 you can actually dial that number in a little more specific and we can see that here's 30, 60, 90, and 120 days of cost on that property. So, you know, this offer that's not exactly what you wanted, if it takes us another 90 days to get another offer, we would have done better to take this first offer. And it just gives you another arrow in your quiver for having some of these conversations. And the last thing I want to show you is the equity calculator. Jimmy's going to show us this in a minute. This text is killing it. And I just want you to see how we go about it. So buy down, holding cost, and then the equity calculator, which is how much equity do your clients have? They need to see the number. So I put in 7.25. I put in, they purchased it for 8.25. I'm sorry, that's backwards. They purchased it for 5.25. I think the current value is 7.25, and their payoff is 425. Hit compute. We can do the math and show you how much current equity they have in the property. Now, the last thing I want to close with is one of Jason's Pantana's clients that he coaches. Jason just sent this to me and I think it's so good. I want everyone to see it. Sometimes I see videos that are so professional, it's intimidating as someone who doesn't make a ton of videos. And I'm like, how did that? I don't know if I could ever do that. But this Instagram video is crushing it. It's 1 minute long. Shannon Magan in Austin, Texas is the agent. She took the equity review calculator, ran a green screen with it, and we're going to email out to everyone who's on the call today a 1, 2, 3 of how to do a green screen if you've never done one. But she used this equity review to get leads from sellers, and she's killing it. So here's her video. I don't expect yours to be this good, but it at least shows you what it is. It's 1 minute. Chris, go ahead and throw the video on, and then we'll close.
You got $95,000. $126,000. Let me hear you say $259,000. This morning, we've been sending out equity reviews to our clients who are homeowners in the Austin area. Now, if you want to know how much equity you might have in your current home, all you have to do is DM us with your address. I will plug it into this calculator, and what's cool is it'll tell you how much you currently owe on the home. We'll help you do the math and figure out what your home is worth now, and then you will get your equity report. Now, one of our clients found out that their home has almost doubled since they've owned it. So they now have over $300,000 in equity, and their plan is to sell the home, cash out that equity, and use it to buy a nicer home that's a lot closer to where their son lives out of state. So send us a DM if you want your own equity review. And my big question for you is, what are you going to do with that equity?
Oh, I love it. That's so good. Tom, are you there?
I am here, my friend. And that, Shannon is just such a star, such a great agent. So Jeremy, I hope every single person watching downloaded the app. It is, as you know, from the time we met, we had like a 20-minute meeting, and 3 hours later, I'm like, show me again one more time. Like, how do I do this? And, I've shared it with, I don't know, thousands and thousands of agents everywhere. So I'm just a super fan. We got to keep moving fast. I've got Jimmy Mackin coming up next, one of your good friends, who's going to talk about listing attraction. So I will see you, I think, in a couple of days in Orlando, my friend. And I think we're bringing in Jimmy. Hector, we got Jimmy out there. There he is.
Good to see you, Jimmy. Keep it rolling.
All right. Hey, everybody.